So I said to my internal client at the time when I was working in a big Fortune 500 multinational, hey, let's practice what we're going to say in this meeting. Let's make sure that you feel super comfortable and you go in there and you're able to deliver well. And he says, don't worry, I got this. I feel really confident about what we're going to talk about. We've already discussed this. And I said, that's great, but let's practice anyway. No, I'm a natural. I can speak naturally. And so I don't need to talk about this. And I say, I believe it. We've had great conversations, but I still think we need to want to discuss this. So after a few back and forths, he agreed. And just in the first practice, he fumbled. He couldn't get the words out. He couldn't say those words, you no longer work here anymore, because it is not an easy thing to say, especially with someone who you've been working with for a while, especially when you feel like it's not even their fault. And so that's what many of us are going through right now today. We're going into office talking to people to no fault of their own have lost their jobs today. And if you think that you're going to go into that meeting without preparing, I'm warning you, that is not a good idea. So I want to give you a few steps. I've already kind of talked to you in another session about how to say goodbye with dignity. I want to talk to you now about the actual meeting. What happens in that meeting? What do you say? When do you have that meeting? Where do you sit in the meeting? Who should be in the meeting? We're going to go through all of that. So get out your pencil, get out your pen, get out your paper, whatever tablet you're going to take notes on, but definitely take notes because we have a lot to say. So the first thing I want you to do is make sure before you even start this termination is to make sure you even have a process. What is the process that you had used to get to this point of this termination? And that is so critical, very, very critical, because with this process, you had to come up with a way that you were going to say goodbye to this person, and you want to make sure that that was clear. It's very clear how you came to this decision, and you had a very objective process, and it's documented. Documented. And I know right now everyone is pretty much, I want to say, in their feelings, and so they're saying, oh, I understand, I get where you're coming from. We wish you the best, but 3 weeks later, or one day after, or whenever it could be, when someone is home and realize that all of a sudden they don't know how they're going to feed their family, all of a sudden they're not sure how they're going to pay their mortgage, well, different emotions begin to set in. And so you want to make sure you have your process documented. We talked about before in another session, make sure how you've handled your protective class. And so you want to have answered all those questions before you even go into this meeting. So let's go ahead and kick off and talk about this meeting. Where are you even going to have this meeting? You got to decide that. Where do you have this type of meeting? And this meeting could be in a private conference room, it could be in your office, but I would suggest a very neutral place. Find somewhere in your building where you can have it in a neutral place where employees basically when they come into this room, they don't feel like they're trying to walk into a private space. But if you can't do that, no big deal. Have it in your office. But make sure it's a place where everybody's not seeing what's happening in the office, what's going on in that office. So if you're a place that has like a lot of glass space or a lot of glass offices, that's not a place where you want to have it unless you can pull the curtains or the blinds. Then you want to decide when. And so when is my recommendation is before 10 o'clock in the morning and never on a Friday. So this way you have it early before the day starts, you get to talk to that person, you make that decision, and then you actually let that person go and you go on with the day. If you do it on a Friday, they cannot come back and ask any questions about what has happened because they might have more questions. And then you want to ask who should be in this meeting. Now, in this meeting, you should have your HR person and the manager. HR is not there to deliver the message. That is the manager's job. You, as a manager, that's your responsibility. HR is there to support and also there to give any other guidelines or information that may be pertaining to this person's departure from the company. But this manager is the person who's going to deliver this message. The other thing I want to say is prepare, prepare, prepare. You cannot ever be too prepared for this type of meeting because you have no idea what's going to happen. You may think you know, but I'm telling you from experience, I have sat in meetings with people who I was ready for them to go crazy and they were calm as a pea. And I've gone in meetings where I was waiting for knew this person was going to be so calm, and they were in actual shock. And so you don't know what's going to happen. So you want to prepare. So what are you going to prepare? Every single document that you're going to need in this meeting, or you're going to need this employee to sign, or you're going to need this employee to know about, bring it to the meeting. This is not something you want to say, oh, we'll mail it to you. Oh, we'll get that to you. I want you to have their instructions on how they're going to get their last salary. So if it's going to be paid on payday, which is what your handbook says, that's fine. If their salary has already been paid, their last salary is going to be paid that day, then let them know. What's going to happen to their vacation? What's happening to their medical insurance? How is this going to impact if they're going to have COBRA? All those things you need to know. And if you don't know, that your HR person in that room should be able to answer those questions. Then I want you to make sure that when you deliver this message, you are very clear on why there's a termination. You are very clear on why this person is leaving. And that is what you're communicating. It is never about the person. It's about the position. You do not want to make it about the person in this case, especially, and I'm talking about now where we're doing a workforce reduction, because right now we're in an economic time where companies are laying off because of economics. So it's not necessarily about, hey, John, I had to let you go, but it's like, John, this position can no longer be in the company because we can no longer sustain it. So it's not about the person, but it's about the position. And why am I emphasizing that? It has a different feel for that person. They're going to still say, oh, I got fired, as opposed to my position was removed. But you do want to sometimes make it about the position versus the person. And so then you want to know, sorry, I wrote a bunch of notes here. Then you want to be able to think about, one of the things is references. Are you going to give references? And if you are, have that reference letter also ready and available right there in that meeting. And that letter, I recommend, very simple. John worked here from January 1st, 2005 to March 15th, 2020. Clearly, the dates, what their position was, and just keep it very simple. If you want to give a recommendation about how great that person's performance is, then you can do that, but make sure it's a very objective performance. Now, if you cannot give that for everyone, you're going to find yourself in a pickle. Why did you give John and you didn't give Jane? So you want to kind of think about that. Then the other thing you want to think about is are there any NDCs or non-competes that you have to figure out how you're going to work around that in this environment, because this is not your ordinary termination. And so how are you going to handle that as well? And then if there's a return to work, is this a layoff or a furlough? Is this person have an opportunity to come back to work? If they do not give them false hope. And if they're never coming back, or you have no clear plan on how they would come back, let them know that. They need to walk out of that meeting knowing this is final. Not that, oh, something else could come up later. They need to know this is it. It's over. Today is the last day. And then I want you to think about seating. And seating is very important. It doesn't seem like it, but it is, because you don't know, again, what's going to happen in this meeting. I always recommend that the management team, the HR person, always sit by the door. You want to be in control of that door, especially for an employee that you're not quite sure how they're going to take this information. You want to control who comes in, who goes out, or who can't go out, or who can come, or have the ability to get out if you need to. And so that's one of the things I do recommend. So that's inside of the meeting. Prepare for the different emotions, for denial, for anger, for stress, for shock, for tears. Be prepared for all of that and know how you want to address that. Have a clear plan on how you're going to address that. Then I want to talk to you about outplacement. You want to talk about the transition. And one of these things really help when people can start looking towards the future, and not sit in that position of, I'm stuck, I got fired, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But if they can now start saying, you're saying, hey, there's outplacement services. So if your company can go ahead and start doing that, making arrangements with other agencies or recruitment agencies or outplacement services, to be able to talk to your people about what's next in their lives. It could even be the Small Business Administration, where people can talk to them about businesses. It could be where you hand them a list where all the companies, because we know right now over 200,000 jobs are out there where companies are hiring. So you can give them a list and say, hey, by the way, these companies are hiring. You're not giving career advice. You're just giving them direction and guidance on where they can go. Now, question, what happens if your employees are remote? How do you do that? So if your employees are remote, they're already working from home, or they've always worked from home, or they're in a different location and you can't get to see them face to face. It could be because of social distancing, or you just cannot get face to face. I would say do a video conference. I know you can call them on the phone and tell them. I know you can send a text. I know you can send an email. And I'm saying, please do not do that. Get on a video conference and say, hey, I have a very important message. I want a very important message, or something I need to really talk to you about that's extremely important. I would love for us to do a video conference. It is not a very difficult thing for you to get. And do that so you can get a face-to-face, with that person. Any documents or any pay or anything that they need to have signed, or they need have after that meeting, make sure you already have those printed out in a FedEx or DHL, USP, whatever you want, and make sure it gets to their house the next day, which is why you don't want to do it on a Friday. You want to make sure it gets there the very next day, and so they can go over all these documents you're talking about. And so your question is, can I email them? Sure, you can email them, but I would email them, but I would also make sure I gave them hard copies as well. You don't know if they have a printer, you don't know if they ran out of ink, whatever. You just want to make sure that they actually get them. Remember, you don't want this to be any more stressful for them than it actually has to be. And then the other thing is your property. Have you given them a phone, keys, car, credit cards? You need to get all of that back. So if it's a face-to-face meeting, you get that back right there in the meeting. Do not allow a person to say, oh, I'll bring my keys back next week. Or, oh, I have some other phone numbers on here that I need to get off of this phone, but before I give it back to you. I'm telling you from experience, the people you love the most, the ones who you supported the most, things can change. So please go ahead and get your keys, get your phone, get your laptop back from that person in that meeting. So they say to you, well, I need this phone because this is where I have all my phone calls. My phone number's on it. That's a company phone. They should have never had their personal information in there. So take your phone back. Sounds cold. Take your phone back. If you want your phone, take it back in that meeting. And then if they had a company car, how are they going to get home? So already make reservations or arrangements for transportations. Do not leave that to them as well, to kind of figure out, how will I get home? And the other thing is the walk of shame about going back to my desk. And I talked a little bit about that in another video. Do I go back to my desk and get my things? How do I get my personal things? So you ask, is there anything important that you need today from that desk? And they can say yes or no. Whatever those things are, my strong recommendation is allow someone else to go and get those things and bring them back. Do not allow that person to go back into the office environment. Now there's, people say, well, I just want to say goodbye to everyone. You do have no idea what that could spark. And I always like to control what I can control. I cannot control your emotions, but I can control where I allow your emotions to flow. And I can control how those emotions can get to other employees. And so therefore, I would say, do not allow that person to go back into the workplace and give their goodbyes. You don't know what those goodbyes could look like. So collect all their things from their desk, collect the most important things from their desk, and make arrangements for them to come back and get the other things at another time. And so the last part I want you to think about is the remaining employees. Because you didn't let everybody go. There's somebody still working, and they're thinking, are they going to let me go tomorrow? Why did they let him go? Why did they let her go? Why am I still here? And so you want to talk to your remaining employees. You need to build them up. You need to let them know what the direction of the company is. You need to let them know exactly how their job. Is it not like, oh, you're permanent, you're safe, you're never going to lose your job, but you need to give them some sense of comfort if you want to see some good work coming out of that. And so I'm going to be talking about, so look for the video where I'm going to be talking about managing employees that are left behind. So I'm Seba Badaki. I'm so Glad that you tune in. I hope you got everything that you needed. If not, send us a message. I would love to give you more information and support you through this most difficult time. If you have not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, She Works Now. We would love to have you and see you there over there on YouTube. And we are continuing to make and create workplaces where women will thrive. Have a great day.